My girlfriend's coworker mocked me. Planning to live off her forever? Get a real job. She added, he's joking. Don't be childish. The next day, I walked into their company as the new CEO, and the joke became their nightmare. Before we go on, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us which city you're tuning in from. I've been dating Sophia for 3 months. We met through mutual friends, and honestly, we clicked pretty fast. She works in marketing at a medium-sized software-as-a-service company called Mendoza & Co. Solutions. Good job. Seems stable. She gets along with the people there. The thing with my job is this. I'm what you'd call a restructuring specialist. I buy troubled companies, restructure them, and make them profitable. It's not something I go around bragging about, especially when deals are in progress. There are confidentiality agreements, non-disclosure agreements, contracts, and all that jazz. So when Sophia asked me what I did, I was a bit vague. I told her I was independent, that I did business consulting and development. She seemed to draw her own conclusions. She assumed I was some kind of freelance software guy who worked from project to project. I didn't bother to correct her. We were new, we were having fun, and frankly, my job isn't a great dinner conversation topic. Last Friday, she invited me to her company's recognition night, a big event, a ballroom at the Camino Real Hotel, open bar, and awards ceremony. She wanted to formally introduce me to her colleagues, and I said sure. I put on a suit and arrived at 7. The night started off well. I met some of her work friends. We had casual conversations, the typical corporate networking stuff. Then we got to her table. That's where I met Bruno. Bruno is the sales lead. In his 40s, loud laugh, a firm handshake that lasts too long. You know the type of person, right? He immediately asked me what I did. Business development consulting, I told him. Oh yeah, what firm? I'm independent. That's when his whole attitude changed. He leaned back with a mocking smile on his face. Independent, right? So, freelance. You could say that, yes. He looked at Sophia. Freelance. That's what we call the unemployed now. A couple of people at the table laughed. Sophia smiled. She didn't say anything. Well, I do have a job, I said, keeping my tone light. I just work for myself. Bruno didn't let it go. Independent. Doing what exactly? Building little websites, running Etsy shops. More laughter. I stayed quiet. I took a sip of my drink. Sophia touched my arm. Leonardo, you don't have to get defensive. Bruno's just joking. Then she addressed the table. He's very humble about his work. Sometimes too humble. You know. That hurt more than Bruno's comments. She was telling me to play along. Basically, the night went downhill from there. Every time someone asked about my work, the people at the table would exchange a knowing look, as if they all agreed I was some kind of charity case Sophia was dating. Some of her colleagues made comments. It must be nice to have that freedom without a real schedule. Sophia likes men, she can, manage. My cousin also does freelance web design. He's doing super well right now with the economy. I stayed quiet. Sophia kept laughing with them. She told me I should relax when she saw I wasn't participating in the jokes. The worst part came at dessert. Bruno stood up with his drink, and his voice boomed across the table. Hey, Leonardo, seriously, tomorrow our company will have a new CEO after this acquisition deal closes. You should send in your resume, dude. Maybe they have an entry-level position for you. It could be your big break into corporate life. The whole table burst out laughing. Even Sophia chuckled discreetly behind her wine glass. I smiled and nodded. I'll think about it. What I didn't tell him was, I know exactly who's going to take the reins of your company tomorrow, Bruno. Around 10 at night, my phone vibrated. A text from my corporate lawyer. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., acquisition announcement. You'll address the leadership team first. Boardroom setup confirmed. The board wants you there at 8:30. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. I sat in the stall for a minute just processing it. I've been working on this deal for 3 months. 3 months of audits, negotiations, restructuring plans. The purchase of Mendoza & Co. Solutions closes tonight at midnight. On Monday morning, I'll walk into that building as the new owner, and Sophia has no idea. I went back to the table, stayed for another hour, and let them make their jokes. Bruno was on a roll, asking me if I needed help updating my LinkedIn, if I knew how to use Excel, if I had ever worked in a real office environment. Sophia squeezed my hand under the table, but she didn't say anything to stop him. I took her home around midnight. She was a little drunk and happy. "Thanks for putting up with the teasing and being a good sport tonight," she told me. "Bruno can be a lot, but he means well. It's just office banter, you know." I just nodded and gave her a good-night kiss at her door. I got home and checked my email. Acquisition finalized at 11:47 p.m. Mendoza & Co. Solutions. Now owned by Perez Corporate. My company. It's 3 in the morning now. I can't sleep. I have to be at their office in 5.5 hours to address the leadership team. Sophia will be in that room. Bruno too. I'm not vindictive. I bought this company because it's a solid restructuring opportunity with a good foundation, but poor management. The workplace culture issues are documented in the audit reports. High turnover, complaints about a hostile work environment, sales numbers that don't add up. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking forward to tomorrow morning. I'll update after the announcement. Edit. Holy Mother, this blew up. May my inbox rest in peace. To answer the most common questions, no, I'm not going to fire Sophia for revenge. That's not how I do business. Yes, the acquisition was already in process before I met her. It was pure coincidence. The audit pointed to her department specifically, but I didn't know she worked there until we had been dating for a couple of weeks. Update 1. The announcement was made. It went exactly as you'd imagine. I arrived at the office on Monday at 8:25 in the morning. I met with the board first for a quick alignment on the message. At 9 o'clock sharp, we called a general meeting with the leadership team. The interim CEO, a good guy named Hector, who already knew this was coming, began the announcement. As you all know, Mendoza & Co. has been acquired. I want to introduce you to the new management. Let's welcome Leonardo Perez, founder and CEO of Perez Corporate. I walked into the boardroom. You should have seen their faces. Bruno literally froze mid-sip of his coffee. He just stood there holding the cup with his mouth open. Sophia turned pale. She went completely white. She mouthed, "What?" to me from across the room. The department heads looked confused. They didn't know me from Friday night, but the handful of people who were at that table knew exactly what was happening. I remained professional. I gave my typical acquisition speech. I talked about the restructuring plan, the timeline for the changes, and my vision for the company's growth. I mentioned that I'm committed to building a culture where people are valued for their skills and character, not judged by superficial measures or titles. I could feel Sophia staring at me the whole time. I finished after about 20 minutes and opened the floor for questions. Bruno's hand shot up. "Yes, Bruno," I said. Excuse me, when did this deal start?" 4 months ago. It closed on Friday at midnight. I saw him do the math. I saw him realize that he had been sitting at his table listening to him mock me while I was literally days away from owning his company. "Any other questions?" Silence. "Perfect. Department heads, I'll be scheduling one-on-one meetings this week. HR will send out the calendar." Meeting adjourned. I walked out of there. Sophia caught up with me in the hallway 30 seconds later. "Leonardo, what the hell?" "I can't talk right now. I have a meeting with the finance director." "You bought my company?" "I bought a company. I didn't know it was yours until we had been dating for a while. And it didn't occur to you to mention it." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "When should I have mentioned it? When we went for drinks and you told your friends I was between jobs. Or maybe on Friday night when your whole table was laughing about how I should apply for entry-level positions." She had the decency to look ashamed. "That was just. They were joking. Bruno jokes with everyone." "Right. Jokes." I started walking again. "I have back-to-back meetings all week. We can talk later." "Don't do this. Don't let what happened on Friday night." "This isn't about Friday night." I looked at her. "It's about the fact that you sat there and let it happen. You told me to be humble, to take the joke." I left her standing there. I spent the next 3 days in meetings. The finance director explained to me that the books are worse than the preliminary audit showed. I found irregularities in the sales reports, some very large, all pointing to Bruno's team. I also found something interesting. Sophia's department is performing well below average. The marketing team had already been flagged for restructuring even before I made the initial offer. Not because of her specifically, but the whole group has culture and productivity issues. On Wednesday afternoon, Sophia sent me a message and asked if we could talk. I told her I was very busy with the transition, which wasn't a lie. She asked if we were still together. I told her I needed time to think. On Thursday morning, I asked Human Resources, HR, to pull Sophia's file. It's a standard procedure. I review all department heads and senior staff during acquisitions. What I found took me by surprise. She had applied to Perez Corporate 18 months ago for a senior marketing position. Her resume made it to the final rounds, but HR rejected her because she wasn't a good culture fit based on reference checks. There were some concerns about her integrity and accountability. I never saw her application. That's HR's area, but someone in my company had already assessed her character and noticed her shortcomings. On Friday, I scheduled the one-on-one meetings with the marketing team. Sophia was my last meeting of the day. She came in nervous and tried to make small talk. I remained professional. I asked her about her projects, her team's dynamics, and her opinions on the department's performance. Then I asked her about Friday night. What do you want me to say? She looked frustrated. I'm sorry. I already apologized. I don't need an apology, I told her. I need to understand something. Did you know those comments were bothering me? I could see it, but you told me to take the joke, to be humble. Why? She shifted in her chair. It's just how it works here. The culture. Bruno has been with the company for 8 years. He has weight. You can't stand up to guys like him without making things complicated for yourself. So you chose the easy way out. I chose to keep the peace. I nodded. This is my problem, Sophia. I can work with someone who makes mistakes. I can work with someone who's learning, but I can't work with someone who knows what's right and chooses not to do it just because it's uncomfortable. This is about us, isn't it? You're punishing me. This is about the culture, the kind of environment I'm building here. And right now, you're part of the problem I'm trying to fix. I told her she would be placed on a performance improvement plan, a PIP. She would have 90 days to demonstrate leadership, accountability, and cultural alignment. Her manager would have the details by Monday. She left without another word. That same afternoon, I fired Bruno, not for what happened on Friday night, but because the audit found 23 cases of falsified sales reports, inflated numbers, and misrepresented client contracts. Security escorted him out at 5:45 in the afternoon. Sophia sent me a message that night. She said I was being unfair, that I was letting my personal feelings affect business decisions, and that she expected more from someone who claims to be professional. I didn't reply. It's been almost a week now. The company is adjusting to the changes. Some people are nervous. Others are relieved. I found out that Bruno had been harassing and intimidating junior sales staff for years. 3 people have already thanked me in private for firing him. Sophia and I aren't speaking. She's on her PIP. From what I hear, she's telling people that the power has gone to my head, that I'm using my position to get back at her. Maybe she's right. Maybe I should have handled this differently, but I keep thinking about that table, about how easy it was for her to laugh with them, about how she didn't hesitate to choose their approval over my dignity. And I think this is exactly the kind of person who doesn't pass reference checks. Update 2. Things escalated this week. I need to document this while it's fresh. On Monday morning, I met with the HR director and legal counsel. I wanted a full breakdown of the workplace culture complaints that came up during the audit. The list was longer than I expected. It turns out Mendoza & Co. had been bleeding junior talent for 18 months. Exit interviews consistently mentioned a toxic leadership and a boys' club mentality. Most of the complaints pointed to the sales department, but marketing also came up. There were specific mentions of people not speaking up when they witnessed problems, covering up bad behavior with their silence. An exit interview from 7 months ago specifically mentioned seeing a marketing manager laugh while a sales lead belittled a colleague at a company event. It didn't mention names, but the timeline matched other incidents. That's when I decided to dig deeper into Sophia's history. I found 3 cases where she had been present during HR policy violations. She was a direct witness and said nothing. One of them was a harassment complaint that was swept under the rug because no one would corroborate the victim's story, even though 5 people, including Sophia, were in the room when it happened. I also found performance reviews where she had lowered people's ratings for not being a culture fit, without explaining what that meant. Small things individually, but together they painted a picture. She wasn't the villain, but she wasn't an ally either. She was the person who looked the other way because it was easier. On Tuesday afternoon, Sophia requested a meeting. She came to my office at 3 in the afternoon. "We need to talk," she said. "Not about work, about us." I leaned back in my chair. "There is no us, Sophia. Not anymore. Because of one stupid night? Because I didn't defend you from Bruno? Because you showed me who you are when things get uncomfortable. And I believed you." She sat down uninvited. "You're not being fair. You're taking one moment and defining my entire character by it. It's not just one moment." I opened the file on my computer. "You had 3 opportunities to corroborate an HR complaint about harassment. You chose not to. You lower people's ratings in their reviews for vague culture fit reasons. You've been here for 4 years, and you haven't reported a single case of misconduct despite being present at multiple violations. That's just how corporate environments work. You pick your battles." "No," I told her. "That's how toxic environments work, because people like you allow them to." Her face hardened. "You know what? Fine. Fire me. Let's get this over with. This whole PIP thing is just you dragging it out anyway." "I'm not going to fire you. You're going to complete your 90 days, and you're going to show me if you can really be a leader or if you're going to fail on your own merit. Either way, it's your choice." She stood up. "I thought you were different, but you're just like any other guy with a little bit of power. It goes straight to your head." "Maybe," I replied, "or maybe I'm just tired of accepting mediocrity from people who should be better." She left and slammed the door. On Wednesday morning, things got murkier. I got a call from my lawyer. Bruno had filed a wrongful termination lawsuit. His lawyer argued that I fired him in retaliation for comments made at a private event, and that the sales audit was a retroactive justification. My lawyer laughed when he read the lawsuit. "He falsified sales reports. You have documentation going back 8 months. This isn't going anywhere." "Good," I told him. "Send them the audit results. All of them." On Thursday, I met with the junior sales representative who had been working under Bruno, a young guy named Diego, 26 years old, with nervous energy. He had been with the company for 14 months. "I just wanted to thank you," he told me, "for what you did." "You mean firing Bruno?" "Yes. He made my life a living hell. He'd steal credit for my sales. He'd blame me when his fake numbers didn't match the projections. He'd tell me I'd never make it in sales if I didn't toughen up." Diego looked down. "I was planning to quit. I already had my resignation letter written." "Are you going to stay now?" "If you give me the chance. I know I'm still learning, but I want to try. Really try, without someone sabotaging me." I promoted him to interim sales lead that same afternoon. Probably too fast by conventional standards, but the kid had something Bruno never had: true integrity. On Friday, Sophia's manager came to talk to me. He told me that Sophia was having a hard time meeting the PIP requirements, specifically the part about demonstrating leadership in difficult conversations. She had been asked to address some team dynamic issues, to push back in some unproductive meetings, and to point out certain problematic behaviors. She wasn't doing it. "She keeps saying it's not her place," her manager explained, "that she doesn't want to make waves." I nodded. "Keep documenting it. Give her the support she needs to succeed, but hold firm on the standards." This morning I found something else, something I wasn't looking for. I was reviewing old company files, trying to understand the culture that had developed here when I came across Sophia's original application to pair as corporate. I knew HR had rejected her, but I had never seen the actual reference notes. One of her former colleagues had written, "Sophia is talented in execution, but she has issues with accountability. She tends to align with whoever has power in the room rather than doing what's right. I would not recommend her for leadership positions that require independent judgment." That reference was from 3 years ago, long before I met her, long before Friday night. I sat there looking at that note for a good while. This was no longer about revenge or hurt feelings. This was about patterns, about someone who had been exhibiting the same character traits for years and whom no one had held accountable long enough for her to change. I called my executive coach that same afternoon. We talked about the whole situation, the acquisition, the relationship, the decisions I've been making. I wanted to make sure I wasn't letting my personal feelings cloud my judgment. "Here's my question," she told me. "If you had never dated her, if Friday night had never happened, what would you do with an employee with that history? Put her on a PIP. Give her a real chance to change with clear standards and support. If she doesn't meet them, fire her. Then that's what you should do. So that's what I'm doing. The PP continues. Sophia has 63 days left to prove she can lead with integrity. I hope she does it. I really hope she proves everyone wrong and becomes the kind of leader this company needs. But I wouldn't bet on it. As for us, personally, it's over. I called her last night. I told her we needed to officially end things. She agreed. She said she couldn't be with someone who was so vengeful. I didn't argue. Maybe she's right. Maybe I do hold a grudge. Or maybe I've finally learned what I should have known from the beginning. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. The company is doing better. Morale is up. 3 people have already applied for Bruno's old position. All internal candidates who had been waiting for an opportunity. We're restructuring the sales compensation plan to reward real performance instead of whatever Bruno was doing. It's a mess, but it's a mess that's moving in the right direction one day at a time. Edit. Some of you are asking me why I'm posting updates about my ex-girlfriend's work performance on Reddit. It's a fair question. The answer is because this stopped being about her the moment I realized she represents a much bigger problem. It's about how toxic cultures persist because good people stay silent, about how enablers are just as responsible as perpetrators. Also, it's Friday night, and I'm working late in an empty office instead of having a life. So yeah, I'm on Reddit. Final update. Quick update because something pretty crazy just happened that I need to process. First, the business stuff. Sophia's 90-day PP ended yesterday. She didn't make it. Her manager documented multiple instances where she failed to demonstrate leadership or accountability. She missed deadlines, dodged difficult conversations, and kept trying to work around the requirements instead of meeting them. HR gave her 2 weeks' notice this morning. She'll be gone by the end of the month. I've heard she's been telling people that I fired her out of spite, that the whole PP was a sham to get back at her because she broke up with me. Her friends at the company, the ones left from the old culture, are buying it hook, line, and sinker. Now there's a whole narrative about the scorned CEO ex-boyfriend abusing his power. I let it go. Anyone who believes that version either doesn't know the facts or doesn't want to. It's not worth spending my energy on it. But here's where things got interesting. This afternoon, around 4 p.m., there was a knock on my office door. It was Diego, the young guy I promoted to sales lead, standing there looking nervous. "Sir, do you have a minute?" "Of course. What's up?" He came in, closed the door behind him, and pulled an envelope out of his jacket. "I need to show you something. I've been hesitating about whether to bring it up, but after what I heard about Sophia leaving, I think you should see it." He handed me the envelope. Inside was a printed photograph. It wasn't professional quality. It looked like someone had taken it with a phone and printed it, but the image was quite clear. It was from that Friday night at the gala. The photograph showed our table. Bruno in the middle, mid-laugh, with his arm extended, pointing at me. Sophia next to him with her wine glass raised, smiling. Me on the other side, with a neutral face, my hands crossed on the table. You could see the whole dynamic right there. The mockery, the complicity, the silent dignity. "Where did you get this?" "From one of the banquet staff that night," Diego said. "A guy named David has worked a bunch of our company events. He saw what was happening at your table, and it bothered him. He took the picture." "Why?" Diego paused. "Because he'd seen Bruno pull that same stunt before. He thought someone should have documentation." "Documentation of what?" "A hostile work environment." That's what David called it. He said he'd served at 3 company events in the last 2 years, and Bruno always acted like that. He always picked someone to attack. He always got the table to gang up on them. David kept the photos because he thought someday someone might need proof. I looked at the photo again, studied Sophia's face, the easy smile, the casual participation in someone else's humiliation. "David heard that you were the new owner," Diego continued, "and he wanted you to have it. He said you handled things with class, and that people with power don't usually choose decency when they can choose revenge." I didn't know what to say to that. Diego shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "Look, I know Sophia is leaving. I know people are saying things, but I was at that table too. I was the junior guy, and I stayed quiet. I didn't want to make waves. I saw the whole thing, and what they're saying about you now isn't true. You gave her the same chance you gave everyone else. She just didn't take it." After Diego left, I sat there with that photograph for a good while. I called my lawyer and asked him if this would have helped with Bruno's wrongful termination lawsuit. It wouldn't have hurt, he told me. Photographic evidence of hostile behavior in the workplace. Witnesses from the company event. But we didn't need it. The falsified reports were enough. So this photo doesn't change anything legally? No. The case was already dead. But if you're asking me if this validates your decision-making process, yes, it does. I asked HR to add the photo to Bruno's termination file anyway, just in case he tries to come back with another lawsuit. But what keeps running through my head isn't the legal angle. It's what Diego said about people with power choosing decency. Because this is what I've learned in the last few weeks. I could have destroyed Sophia. I could have fired her on day one. I could have made her life miserable. I could have used my position to make sure she never worked in this industry again. I had the power to do all of that, but I chose not to. I gave her 90 days, clear standards, her manager's full support, and every resource she needed to succeed. She failed on her own merit, and that's her problem. Her exit interview is scheduled for next Friday. It's a standard practice conducted by an external HR consultant, completely by the book. The company is doing well. Revenue is up 12% since I took over. The sales pipeline is healthy now that the numbers are real. We've hired 6 new people. All are a good culture fit, and all are excited to be here. The junior employees who were being harassed under Bruno are thriving. Culture takes time to change, but we're moving in the right direction. As for me personally, I'm fine, really. I had a date last week, actually, with a woman I met at a business conference. She has a small consulting firm. We went for coffee, talked for 3 hours, and really connected. I'm seeing her again on Saturday. She asked me what I did. I told her the truth from the beginning. I buy companies and fix them. She nodded. She said it sounded complicated, and we moved on to other topics. It felt good to just be honest about it. The Mendoza & Co. building is starting to feel less like an acquisition and more like a real company. My company, it's satisfying in a way I didn't expect. Someone asked me last week what I really gained from all this. They were being sarcastic, like, what did you get out of all the drama with Sophia? Was it worth it? But I've been thinking seriously about that question. I gained clarity about what I'm willing to tolerate, about what matters to me in a partner, and about the kind of leader I want to be. I gained confirmation that my instincts about people are usually right, even when I want them to be wrong. David, the waiter, said, people with power don't usually choose decency. Maybe that's true, but sitting here now, looking at this photograph of the worst moment of this whole situation, I'm glad I did. Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that really belongs to you. How you treat people when you have the power not to. Sophia leaves in 2 weeks. I'll be professional, fair, and stay completely out of it. She'll get her severance. Her references will be honest, but not vindictive. And she'll move on with whatever comes next. And I'll keep building something better here. That's the update. Thanks for following the story, Reddit. It's time to close the laptop and get back to real work.